So Ayurveda, this is a beautiful language that helps us tune into what is going to be the best for us at any point in our lives, with principles that are going to be relevant and ongoing as we grow and change, and will guide our choices. What may have worked in my 20s is probably not going to work in my 40s. So Ayurveda is a system that can be learned without the need to be caught up in rigid structures or dogma or norms. You learn a little bit, you see how that resonates, and take for what is going to be work for you. The beauty of Ayurveda is that it gives us a clear understanding of the principles that govern nature. It helps us understand ourselves as living creatures in relationship to nature, connected to everything that is alive with a sense of purpose. Helps us unlock something precious in the web of relationships. So, in a sense, the bar for what constitutes healthy in Ayurveda has been really raised, because in Ayurveda, being healthy is not just being asymptomatic, it's really having this bigger sense of equilibrium and sustained containment of the mind generated by deep vitality of the body. So, yeah, that's a mouthful, but how do we create deep vitality in the body that can actually produce a sense of relative contentment of the mind, right? Again, and we come back to the mind. What did we come here to do? Deep intelligence is in everything, in every cell, in every tissue, in every system, in every sentient being, including plants and minerals and rocks and elements. So creating those conditions for our life force to operate with greater ease in our bodies, that is what we want to do, because we have the most perfect and sublime instrument, the body. So as long as we live in this body, we want to pay close attention to the 5 elements that exist in all matter, the building blocks of life, simply so profound. Ancient sages in India perceived that the beginning of the world existed in this unmanifested state of consciousness. From that unmanifested state of reality, sound was the first thing that manifested. And in India and in Hinduism and in Vedic thought, we understand as Om as the primordial sound, the celestial sacred mantra, the vibration of the universe. And from that Om created came ether, which is the space element, is this ethereal element that begins to move and then creates the air element. This steady movement of air creates friction and heat, and from those particles, fire gets created. And then the heat of fire dissolves and evaporates and liquefies. And so then, as it solidifies, those molecules become earth. And I'm missing the water element, which is also coming from the liquefying and evaporating of the fire elements. So water, there comes the earth, and then this is how all the elements get manifested in everything that we perceive in the world is made out of different proportions of these elements. And in the body, each part of the body, each tissue, each organ, everything has an affinity for an element. In a sense, and without making an Ayurvedic lesson too long, but just to give you context, the ether element in the human body is the space, is the medium through which life travels. So we can see that in the abdomen, in spaces in the mouth and nose, and the thoracic cavity. Then the air is present in anything that moves, in the heartbeat and contractions and expansions of the lungs and sensory motor movements, in the nervous system. Then the fire element in our metabolism and anything that transforms and cooks, digestion, gray matter in the brain, the eye, the vision, the retina, body temperature, vision, hormones, enzymes. All those are processes of bodily fire. And the fire needs to be protected in the body because the fire is alive. And as long as we kindle it with the right amount of fuel and oxygen, it will be well established within ourselves. And this is the goal of Ayurveda, the right amounts of foods and prana, so fire can convert and break down our food, proper, quality of vitality. And then we have the water element, which is manifested in our fluids, the plasma, sweat, blood, juices, moisture, lubrication. And then the earth is the structure, no? The bones, the whole skeletal system, muscles, stability, solidity, structure. So all these elements have a positive and a negative charge. This is important to mention, as if you ever want to start learning a little bit more about Ayurvedic principles. There's a functional expression that produces vitality in all these elements, and then there's a dysfunctional expression which produces stress. So when we look at the beauty of nature, we find that those 5 elements that provide the foundational blocks of the entire universe are the foundational blocks of material existence. And Ayurveda is the science that is always unfolding. It's effortless. It gets richer and richer the more that you learn. So we come to the idea of the ideal inner climate, right? To support vitality, to support our microdosing process. So the inner climate is based on this idea that our bodies have a certain climate or temperature that they thrive on to bring in longevity. And it's quite specific to the number, no? So much of like 98.6 degrees or 37 degrees. This is a temperature we need to maintain order and homeostasis for hormones to be in balance. And so it's incredibly precise and specific, you know? Many cellular functions, including metabolism and protein synthesis, are highly dependent on this stable temperature range. If the temperature deviates too far from the ideal range, if we get too hot or too cold, then these critical processes can be disrupted, potentially creating very, very dangerous complications, right? So what does the body needs inside? Warm and moist. We are basically a rainforest. Our body is a warm and moist place. Our bodies thrive on a climate that is going to be always warm and always moist. So if you take your hand and you exhale, you feel everything that comes out of the body is warm and moist. Mother's milk, tears, blood, our whole digestive environment, our whole probiotic environment is warm and moist. And outside is the same way. Where do we see organisms thriving the most, right? In those types of environments, not in the desert, not in the high, cold, dry mountains, but in the really warm and moist environments is where life happens the most. And even psychologically, we gravitate towards people that are going to be warm, not too cold, not too hot. That's our comfort zone. That's where the microbiome lives happily. So in this balanced ecosystem, if our bodies are not too hot or not too dried or not too depleted, then we find homeostasis. Overly moist, we grow yeast and candida. Overly dry and constriction, blockages, sluggish digestion, thyroid issues. So it's very interesting to observe that this balance is so delicate, but the body does it so well, right? So as a sort of a blank statement, all Ayurvedic recommendations are going to be within the range of bringing your body into this warm and moist climate so we can regulate metabolic activity, which is ultimately what we're trying to protect in this specific time of our lives, right? As we enter menopause or we live through menopause. And so quickly, something I want to mention, which is recommendations about spices, warm and cooked foods. You know, we need to cook our foods. Most ancient indigenous cultures believe that drinking early on the day some hot water will moist digestion and move everything that's in our bowels towards correct environment, starting with morning elimination, and then staying away from cold foods, refrigerated, frozen, icy. We need to keep our gut warm. So trying to, during microdoses, avoid cold shakes, ice creams, ice foods. Sometimes in the summertime we can have our indulgences, but even raw food is going to be harder to digest. So, and then extremely dry foods stripped of essential fats are going to be difficult. Same with alcohol and caffeine. You know, alcohol is a depressant, it's astringent, it dehydrates. So yeah, how did these people 5,000 years ago, these sages came up with this knowledge and these conclusions? It's fantastic, but it is as simple as the microcosms, such is the macrocosms.